That's good. They didn't ask me to go, and I didn't want to go. That sounds exciting. Great. Well, I noticed this. He's had this guy for 10 or 15 years, but he tells you what you're going to do. One guy, it's only one guy, and then you take it. I don't know. So, I think I told that I was.
Okay, Jared got to see my sisters.
Oh, my Lord. It's like the movie when you watch it, but the movie starts sleeping. That's for marketing. Well over 3,000 square feet. 3 bedrooms, right? An office, 3.5 baths, an office. Beautiful.
There's like the family room area that's like on the kitchen, and then
They got the patio that's.
a lot of people were gonna screen it in when they moved out there.
All right, Roy's back, so we can get started. Welcome to our February Tap Talk. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to focus today on the Wisconsin Forestry Center, and I want to tell you about some of the forestry projects that we have going on at Golden Sands RC&D. Before I do that, I want to introduce our staff members that are here with me today. Let them introduce themselves. I'm Kathy Buckles. I am the administrative intern at Golden Sands RC&D.
I'm Jenna Tuma, Administrative Coordinator at Golden Sands. This is a really important presentation, so feel free to get up and get some more popcorn as needed as the presentation is going on. So I just want to remind people of that.
And I also want to mention that Gabby moonlights with the Wisconsin Forestry Center, and she's currently a student in her final semester at UWSP. So she also works with Forestry Center and does some fun stuff for them. So she's a very busy lady, and we're very lucky to have her on our team. A couple of things that I just want to mention about our forestry projects. All kinds of information up here. You're welcome to grab any of these materials. There's some native seeds, there's some handouts, stickers, all kinds of things. This is a really handy little booklet on woody invasives. That's a real nice field guide to have in your pocket when you're out in the woods. And some information about emerald ash borer. I know I recently lost 2 ash trees in my yard to emerald ash borer. Went through our neighborhood, so that was pretty tragic for me. So if you want to learn more about that, also want to make sure that you guys know that Golden Sands RC&D has demonstration forests in each of our 12 counties. There's actually 2 here in Portage County. So these are living classrooms where we host events and work with people to learn more about forest management and invasive species. And one of our Portage County demo forest sites is the home of Hans Schabel, who is a retired forestry professor from UWSP. He's been managing that woodlot for 50 years. It is an incredible place. Hans is originally from Germany, and through his research, he was permitted to bring trees back. He has trees on his woodlot that originated from the Black Forest in Germany. It is really, really exciting. And the second Portage County demonstration forest is our partners Tom and Amy Zolkowski, and in June, actually on June 9th, we're hosting an NRF field trip at their woodlot, and that is the home of a large population of Karner blue butterflies. So if you've never seen the endangered Karner blue butterfly, register for our NRF field trip in June at the Zolkowski property, and you will be at a huge stand of lupin, and we are most likely, can't guarantee it, but most likely going to be able to see some Karner blue butterflies out there. The other thing I want to mention is that Golden Sands RC&D sells tree shelters. We sell Contra tree shelters. This is a fundraiser that supports our programming. You can buy Contra tree shelters from us cheaper than you can buy them from Plantra. So that is available on our website. I have order forms here, a really nice product to help your trees get started. And Jared has some materials up here also, which he will talk about. Want to mention also our upcoming Tap Talks. Next month in March, we're going to be here with our partners from the Prairie Chicken Project, and they're going to be talking about Central Wisconsin's endangered prairie chickens at the Prairie Chicken Festival that's coming up in April. In April, our Tap Talk is a special Earth Day edition, and Anello Malika, one of the owners of Central Waters, is going to be presenting that Tap Talk. Anello is going to talk about all the sustainability practices that they have built in here at Central Waters, and then he's going to take us on a tour of the brewery. So you don't want to miss that in April. And then in May, Chris Hammerluck from our team and Andrew Senderhoff, who is works for the Portage County Land and Water Conservation Department, they're going to be telling us all about our Portage County lakes. So these guys know the lakes back and forth. They are not only work in their day job in lake management on those lakes, but they also are avid fisher and outdoors people, so they fish those lakes. So we did that just in time for the spring opener of fishing, and if you want to learn more about your Portage County lakes, join us in May for that Tap Talk. The other thing that we have going on here in Central Waters in June is we're doing a build your own rain barrel workshop. So if you want to turn one of these beautiful whiskey or bourbon barrels into a rain barrel for your property, or if you want to even get a like a plastic food grade barrel and turn that into a rain barrel for your property, we're going to be doing that out in the beer garden in June, and we'll have everything that you need to actually do a hands-on conversion and make your own rain barrel and walk out of here with the rain barrel. So all kinds of really cool things coming up. I'm going to check my notes, make sure I didn't mention anything. Alright, I'm going to pass around the sign-up sheet. If you want to get on our mailing list, we just send out a monthly newsletter, no spam, I promise. But you can learn more about things that we have coming up and what we're doing just by putting your name and your email on here. So pass that around. And like Jenna said, help yourself to some snacks, get up and get a beer if you need to, check out our handouts. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our distinguished speaker, Jared Schroeder, and we're going to learn all about the Wisconsin Forestry Center.
How's everyone doing? So, I'm Jared Schroeder, I work at the Forestry Center. I was actually brought in as a high school curriculum development program manager. Really long title. So I'll kind of go through that, but my specialty now is kind of like looking at forestry and forest information through the lens of an educator, how to get more forest education into school, particularly pertaining to workforce development in the forest industries. There's a lot of stuff there. The nice thing about doing classes regarding forestry and forest products is if the audience gets bored, it's thematic. Get bored because it's a tree. If you hear a pun, take a drink. Only if you're drinking beer, they'll make sure you got a fruit on the front. There's going to be a few. All right, let's get into it.
I can flip your slides for you if you'd like to.
All right, so the history of the Wisconsin Forestry Center, we're actually not that old. In 2019, it began as the Forest Education Development Initiative. So its primary target was practicing foresters, trying to give them continuing education credits so they can stay relevant and the things going on. That's how the center began. So technically in 2019, it wasn't even the Forestry Center yet. It was just an initiative. In 2020, it ended up acquiring the Utility Vegetation and Management Program. It's a certificate program for managing vegetation around power lines. And we'll get into that a little bit more later. And in 2022 is when we really ended up developing as a center. So in 2022, we ended up getting an $8 million workforce innovation grant. And that's when I was brought on, and that's when we really began to branch out into kind of what we are today. There's a misconception with the Forestry Center. Because we're part of the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, a lot of people think, oh, you're totally funded through the university. We are not, actually. The only position that has any funding that comes in consistently is for the director position. That's through UW Extension. The rest of us on the staff are supported through grant funding. So we have to continually be searching for different grants in order to support our initiatives and all of our different positions. So as a result, then, we are always looking for different partnerships. We've really branched out. Oh, I just I gotta get some better ones here. And started trying to get different communities together to pull in the same direction, particularly pertaining to how forests are perceived and how forest products are perceived. So industry partner, obviously, and one more, an education partner. So we've noticed, I've particularly noticed, that we've done a really good job of connecting students to forests, particularly at a young age. The problem is, they don't want to harvest anything. They want to protect those trees, which is a very good message and has its time and place, but if there's not incentive to harvest a tree, there's not incentive to manage that forest. If you're not managing that forest, you're stunting its growth and creating potential other problems. So it's really important to incorporate education at as many levels as we can. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. We're not a big staff. There is one person missing from here. We currently don't have a director. And so we're going to be looking for a director here pretty soon. And technically, the person on the end is also on the way out. They only work less than 25% time for us right now. Susan Barrett is our forward-facing outreach coordinator, and she's fantastic. So she coordinates a lot of the continuing education opportunities for professional foresters, as well as a lot of the community outreach programs. We partner with the LIFE program to bring, different types of programming to the community. Lots of different topics there. So she's our outward-facing individual. Awesome. Our associate director, Steph Lang, she just came on in October. So she's still getting her feet underneath her, but she's doing a fantastic job of keeping us afloat without a director right now. She's been a very good leader afloat. Our administrative specialist, Bethany Slombarski. So where Susan is the outward face, Bethany makes everything happen. So she is the glue and also the lubricant that keeps us going, keeps everything happening. So she has a very important role. Again, I work on education outreach, and my sort of counterpart was Keith Turnquist, and what he did, he came on during the Workforce Innovation Grant as well. His task was to create a forest operations immersion program for individuals looking to reskill themselves to get into the logging careers. We learned a lot in that process. I'll look into that more later. So the mission of the Forestry Center, we want sustainability. Sustainable forests is important. You can't have sustainable forests without sustainable careers in forestry as well. What I like about our mission is that it's not just looking at the ecological component to it, it's not looking at just the academic component to it, but it's that career component, it's the product component. It's looking at forests as an entire picture from seed to product. And I think that's really valuable and gives us a unique perspective. Again, main focus has been on professional development, professional certificates and training programs, and our novel approach to workforce recruitment. I had some very interesting research projects too. Our last research, our graduate student, Zoe Kaminsky, did a needs assessment on training in the logging industry. And what's really interesting is they recognize areas where they want to get training, but people only want to get trained on things they're interested in, not areas where they have a deficit in skill set. And so how do you get an industry to go, okay, I know that I'm not good at this part, I need to be trained on it, and follow through? Because recognizing was important. A lot of them, people who are in the industry don't necessarily want to work with people. Shock. But recognizing that as a deficit, they also are like, I don't want to get trained in you. I'd rather learn how to, operate the processor better. So it's a really interesting research. And then we have our forest outreach programs. Again, we'll get into all these in a little bit here, so that's sort of a preview. All right, workshops and training. So just go ahead and click through all of these. Again, meant to keep professional foresters up to date on information. The 2026 series for this year is really cool. So the adaptation and action, so climate smart forestry. So as our climate is continually changing, our forest practices are going to change too. We are seeing how tree species are migrating. That's not so much the big problem. We can assist with that. What the problem is now we're opening up a whole host of pest issues and invasive species issues as a result. That's going to cause a big threat to our forest ecosystem. So this is going to be a very interesting webinar series, which I don't think has started yet, but will be starting soon. Another hot topic in forestry, fire.
That counts.
It's fire, it's a hot topic. Fire is a really interesting tool in forestry. What we tend to hear on the news is the situations where it's not going well. So massive forest fires causing damage to communities, causing damage to human health. We don't want that. The funny thing is fire can actually be used as a preventative tool to keep that from happening. So many of the species in our continent are fire evolved. They want a fire. It helps to cut down competition with invasive species, and it helps to reduce fuel load, which is really important to prevent those catastrophic fires like you see out west. So Smokey Bear did a little bit too good of a job. So instead of him going, hey, we should burn responsibly, he said we shouldn't burn anything at all. And that caused a significant problem. And I think we see this a lot when it comes to the forest. We have very polar viewpoints. Our ideas kind of go to an extreme. I mean, you see, Smokey Bear brought us to an extreme, well, so did the Lorax brought us to an extreme. And we have to find that middle way, that middle ground. Because you go to the extreme opposite direction, that's not good either. This is an opportunity for professional foresters to get an additional certificate. What's interesting is in many European countries, wildlife management is not separate from forest management. It's the same thing because a lot of wildlife live in the forest. My first degree at the point was wildlife management, and I had to learn about forest management to learn how to manage the wildlife. So this certificate helps to bridge that gap again, to get professionals to sort of see that blend of those two different management needs, because they shouldn't be separated. They are a similar concept. You have to do one to get to the other. Of course, there are species that are not forest related. Prairie chicken coming out, right? They're not going to be primarily a forest species, so that doesn't matter as much. So having wildlife management is still important. But again, this is a certificate program that we offer through the university for forest professionals. We got into the podcast game. So Greg and Brad are two silviculturalists in the DNR. And between them and one of our original members back when the Forestry Center was Betty, came up with this idea for Silvicast. So we're now running our seventh season of Silvicast. These two are really a fun pair of personalities. They've been compared to Click and Clack from so that's a very good podcast. Now it's aimed at professional foresters, but I think landowners get something out of that as well. There are some episodes that are very relatable, very easy to listen to. I don't have a background in forestry. I have a background in biology and wildlife biology. So being able to listen to these is actually really good for me to learn more about what I had to develop curriculum about. And they have nice little spots in the beginning, and they can go a little silly, kind of fun. I recommend. So if you want to listen to the Silvercast, I recommend it. It's QR code. We are expanding our podcast empire into wood and iron. So this one we've just developed this season, this year. This one is meant for loggers specifically. The reason this came about is I was at a Great Lakes Timber Professionals Association conference, and I was there representing the Forestry Center, and I had a logger come up to me, and he was having a hard time. Like, are there grants out there to help keep my business running? Are there loans? What's available? And I mean, we realized that there's nothing out there right now to kind of help them through some of the challenges of being a small business owner in this field. Markets aren't real great right now for forest products. That's problematic. It's really problematic because if you have a small woodlot that needs management, there's no incentive for them to come cut and harvest to help your forest because they're not going to make any money off it. There are school forests that are years behind harvest because there's not enough money in that size of a harvest. So we got to do something to help them out. So I teamed up with Blake Manley. Blake has a YouTube channel called Manley Jobs where he talks about these different forest industry careers. So he has a history of podcasts and YouTube channels, so he's quite a personality. He's actually out of Idaho, in Idaho State. And so this podcast looks at a national viewpoint. We only had one episode, actually no, now we're at two. Our second episode dropped today. And as of Friday, we had 80 downloads from our first episode, which is pretty good because we didn't really advertise it much. And somehow made it to 7 countries, one of them being Iceland. I guess they have some trees, but that was nuts. So that's pretty cool. So that's been fun to work on. My job on that podcast is to be the person who doesn't know anything to ask questions because I don't know anything to ask questions. Yeah.
Where's your podcast posted?
Our podcast is posted on our website, which maybe I'll bring up a little bit later and kind of give you a tour of our website and how you can find things on it. We've got a lot of different things on it. All right, so more about the Utility Vegetation Management certificate. This was originally developed in Canada, and the UAA, which is the professional association, ended up getting their hands on it, and they needed a place to house it. And so the natural place was UWSP because we have a well-known program. We had a very strong urban forestry program, so it just made sense that we would house it. Now, all we did was manage the coursework. Facilitators were spread throughout the country. They were the ones teaching the material. We were just sort of doing that clerical work in the back end, keeping track of grades, that kind of thing. What's really neat is they're looking at expanding this into an actual accredited program at Point. So this conference is actually going on this weekend. Susan is out at that conference now, and they're working on developing a 1 or 2 endowed positions for us to be able to bring this officially into the UWSP campus. This is the only program that we know of in North America, and it is highly sought after because it's very unique, and it's really, really pertinent now that we're dealing with all these wildfires out west, because some of them are caused because of issues with electrical systems. And so this is becoming a very big aspect of the WSC. All right, here's where I was brought in. Focus groups were done with the Forestry Center before I was brought on to kind of figure out what are the needs of the industry. And at the time, data was showing that the average owner-operator of a logging business was in their mid-50s. That data came out of 2016. I think the numbers were around 2010. So it's 16 years old. So you can only imagine that age group, that average age, is getting a lot bigger. The number of owner-operators in the state has been steadily declining. Now, some of that's due to the increased efficiency of the machinery that we have now and kind of compensate for that to keep us afloat. But the industry said we need help. We need people to get in the workforce. How many forest industry careers can you think of off the top of your head? How many did you know when you were in high school? Like when I thought forestry in high school, yeah, you're out there measuring trees, I guess. I didn't know anything about it until I got to Point. And when I was there, I was in their starter course for forestry. So all freshmen. Big lecture hall, filled up with these freshman foresters. I'm like, how many of you knew what forestry was when you got here? And no one raised their hand. You look at what the DPI offers for a forest pathway, super simplistic. It's missing the point. Wisconsin has a long history, a cultural history of forestry. I mean, it's embedded in our culture, but it's not being taught in a way that's making it achievable for students to understand what their options are when they graduate. What's really cool about the forest industry is there are jobs at every single training level a student wants. You don't want to go to college? Cool, there's jobs for that. You want to go to a 2-year school? Great, there's jobs for that. You want to go to a 4-year? Higher? Neat. There are options for that. So the forest industry is really versatile. And we had to try to get that information out to people. So we get this $8 million grant, and $4 million of it goes to, to NTC. NTC, North Central Technical College, used that money to develop a teaching full-scale industrial sawmill. So students going through their program can actually learn how to operate a sawmill in a safe environment. It is super cool. Really cool opportunity. But if you've ever developed something, you kind of go through this process. And what's not labeled here is this little swoopy part there. It's called the trough of disillusionment. We went through this pretty hardcore. What they don't tell you in these graphs too is you just kind of keep putting these things together because you keep on going through the whole thing. You just keep on hitting that trough over and over and over again. So as we were developing this program, we felt really confident. We had people behind us, the industries behind us, we had partners ready to go. There were education partners, there were university partners, there were industry partners, community partners. Things were great. Then came the implementation phase. Things got a lot harder at that point. Our goal was to reach 10,000 students. I was not involved with the writing of this grant. 10,000 students. Because originally we were hoping to create, does anyone see the Spudmobile? Create the equivalent of a Spudmobile and take it to fairs around the state, be able to reach students that way. But turns out that was a lot more expensive. I thought at least we couldn't go that route. The curriculum that got developed was developed from absolute scratch. I was given a list of skills and said, do it. And my boss at the time was like, you don't need to be an expert to write curriculum. So I taught for 14 years before this. Turns out it helps a lot to be an expert to write curriculum. And so there was a huge learning curve for me. I was running into barriers left and right, trying to find ways to get these skills into a curriculum. Particularly when you think about the different insurance policies schools have, make things really tricky. I'll get to that in a moment. All right, so this was a fun ride that we were on to fight record. We hit that trough quite a bit. All right, go to that trough. Originally, the curriculum was meant to be, here's a full semester curriculum. You take this curriculum, you go right into a capstone skills camp in the summer. So students would get a full semester and then go right into a summer camp. Have you ever tried to get a high school kid to a summer camp? School's done. They don't want to be in school. So I had to adapt quite a bit. And so what I ended up doing is, as I was writing this, I was realizing just how interconnected this concept was with so many different fields. There was English in here, there was math in here, there's biology in here, there's natural resources in here. It was all connected. It was this intercurricular concept. It was so cool. I'm like, this doesn't fit in just forestry classes. This fits in biology classes, natural resource classes. So I had to make this as modular as possible, so I did. So I took the skills they had and I developed into 4 main modules based on the skills that professionals identified they wanted to see. So tree biology and identification. What's really cool about this is how many times when I was teaching, students were like, why are we learning about cells? I don't care. And of course you have to come up with like, it helps you understand how pieces work together, it helps you understand systems, blah, blah, blah. That never resonated with them. But in this case, why would a logger have to know cell structure and function? Because if they pull a tree and it hits this next one, they need to know how that tree is going to respond to that damage. Because now, that damage they caused is going to reduce the price of that product later down the road. Or, it's going to open this tree up to oak wilt. Now you just lost your entire tree. So, what was so cool about this was that when I was thinking about education through the lens of careers, it just made more sense. Forest health, super pertinent right now. We have so many forest health concerns right now. I'm glad for it. oak will. It's important for students to understand that. That's community ecology. That fits in biology class. Forest management, obviously, and incorporating the different machinery there. So what you see on this picture is we partnered with Ponzi, North America. Ponzi is a mechanized harvester company based out of Finland. And we got 2 of these simulators. They're super big. But it's like sitting in the cab of an actual machine. The student's hands are resting on controls that are identical to the actual machine. It is a lot less intimidating to sit in this than it is in a $1 million machine and operate it. And you would be surprised at how quick students get on, like, figure this out. So there are a whole host of modules that are built within this program. And I picked out 6 modules, but these are ones that will help students kind of get the gist of it. I took the 2 to one of the high schools that we were partnered with, and the students were speed running them within a week. When I take these to teacher conferences,
The young teachers do it, right?
no, like their hands are not communicating with each other. They're going all over the place. They're running the logs in the trees ahead of the machine, hitting it. It is nuts. But you put a kid in it, and they pick up on it so fast. I've had 4th graders in this machine, and they picked up on it super fast. It is crazy. And this thing is like one of those charismatic pieces that students just flock towards. And we need that to get into sort of, like this is an option. It's not just operating that in real life, it's an option, it's the programmers that go into it. This machine has so many computers on it. What those things can do, when they grab a log, you tell the machine what species it is, it measures the diameter, and it automatically determines the maximum length it should be to maximize profit based on the market. Super cool. Super cool. So we need programmers too. Forest products. Forest products are sort of the pulling force that keeps management going. And I think we forget about these a lot because they're so ubiquitous, they're everywhere. You put forest products in your teeth already. It's a toothpaste. Did you watch Packers? Or any football? Just for the helmets are made. There's forest products in it. That's pretty cool. They're making clothing out of trees. That's really neat. Obviously, you probably went to the bathroom at least once. That's part of that. But getting students to understand that we need to be using these products. It's the most sustainable thing that we have, that we can use the most sustainable product. Forestry, if it's not being discussed as a solution to climate change, needs to be. It's 100% an essential component to that discussion. The trees are sequestering carbon when they're alive. That carbon sequestered when it's in a building. This carbon's not going anywhere for a while. And when that tree was taken down, new trees are growing back up, sequestering more carbon, putting that carbon in the ground, putting that carbon into its own wood product, itself. So having the markets, though, is important because if you don't have a market for small trees, you don't have a market for big trees. You keep big trees up. You can't grow big trees unless you can have small trees. It's good for students to see that. So these modules really work well together. So it's possible to have them all together in one curriculum. That's great. But if not, let's settle this into class. The skills camp is a really unique experience too. So we run the skills camp twice. The grant covered the cost of our first 2 skills camps. The first one we ran, we had 7 students, and they learned a little bit about chainsaw operation safety. They learned a little bit about sawmill operation and kiln drying, and they learned a little about forest management. But that was all in 1 week. That's not a lot. A lot of time for them to really master or get interested in the content area. So the second year we ran it, we said, okay, now we're going to give you options. First 2 days of the camp, you're going to go on this first day because that's absolutely essential. If you nick yourself with a chainsaw, you got to. Then after those first 2 days, they have options on 3 different paths. The path, if they're, and I have to do this sort of based on age because of the university's insurance issues. So they do get a credit for this through the university. Forest management is the first class that they can take, the one they're eligible for first. If they finish their freshman year or older, they can take that course. And so it'll be 3 days of working with a forest professional out there measuring trees, making decisions on how you take those numbers into a choice based on owner objectives. This year we're actually going to connect that to, so these take place out at Suez. So Minister Lake, which is right across the street, is a research site at the university. They're migratory birds, I think, is their target for that management site. So the students are actually going to collect data at locations throughout that site. So we can now start looking at it from year to year to year. And we can see how that forest community changes over time. The students will be part of that data collection process. So it's going to be kind of cool. The second path they can take if they finish their sophomore year or older is the forest products path. So that's where they get to use the portable sawmill, they get to open up logs. Opening up a log is really cool. I never really realized it's basically just a dissection game. Because when you open it up, you don't know what you're going to get. And sometimes there's some really neat surprises inside a log. I'm not talking about nails, because those are not fun surprises, but you get those too. But the different defects that happen inside wood is really cool to look at. And sometimes we make a really cool product. And then if they finish their junior year or are finishing their senior year, they can do chainsaw operation safety. This one is really important and more people need to learn. When I was in high school, I learned how to use a chainsaw too. Standing in a bucket, a front end loader, trying to cut a lid down over my head. I realize now there's a lot of red flags there. So these kids need to know how to operate safely. We have a very good instructor that goes through the maintenance process, the personal protective equipment, how to wear all that stuff, how to fell the tree, how to buck the tree, delimb the tree, and they get all that experience. This last year, the 2 students that were in that track, they got to actually fell a tree on the property, and when the first tree hit the ground, you could hear them whooping with joy. It was the coolest experience. Really neat. All right. Forest Immersion Program. We learned a lot from this one. So it was a 6-week intensive training program. Went through forest management, chainsaw operation, forest road construction. So this took place up at Tree Haven in Rhinelander. It was right next to the Case facility up there, and so we partnered with Case. And so the students got to go onto their sandbox and actually learn how to operate dozers and front end loaders. It was so neat. It was a really good experience for them to be able to construct forest roads. And then they spent 2 weeks actually in a processor doing a harvest job. 6 weeks doesn't seem like a long time if you're a teacher. When you can offer a 6-week program is also really good. So Tree Haven is full in summer. They have the summer field experience through UWSP, so they're not available in summer. So you can't do it then. You can't do it during peak harvest time either, otherwise you're not going to have anyone to help train you. So you can't do it in the winter. So that leaves the fall and the spring, when the weather is the most questionable at best. And so there were some issues with that. The main issue we had was that 6-week one, because we had 10 people with our cap who were ready to apply. Some of them were already employed, so they were going to get additional training, but at the last minute, most of them dropped out and said, I can't do 6 weeks. You got a family at home, giving up 6 weeks? Yeah, that's hard. So we ended up getting, between the 2 offerings, I got around 10 people through it. It only cost $100,000 to run an operator. So we learned a lot. And because of what we learned from it, I would consider it a success. Our goal was to get, I think the way the grant was written, I think we wanted 30 people to go through the program. And so we fell well short of that. But now we're looking at some opportunities that can make this a little bit more effective. One of the options we're looking at is doing a winter course at UWSP. So those students, so the forestry students, can learn how to operate these machines, because the forester who understands loggers is a better forester. Otherwise, they're going to be marking trees that these machines can't even get to, and that causes problems. So this could be a certificate program for our students, but it could also be a program that people who aren't UWSP students could opt into and still get that experience and get that training. 1 week is optional. That's doable. It's a lot better than 6. So we learned a lot, Matt. Hopefully that'll start to take shape within the next year or so, what that's going to look like. Like I said, this immersion program is so neat. If you get a chance to get to Anago, and you can, try to set up a tour of that mill, do that. It is really neat. It is really cool. The tour that I got, it still had the plastic on the screens. There, and I really wanted to pull that plastic off. It was so satisfying. But they've had quite a few students go through. They also tried the 6-week model as well. Didn't work for them either. And so they're changing how they're doing their model and making it a little bit more modular, so you can do shorter stints through a longer period of time to get their certificate. But again, the only one of its kind, I think, in the Western Hemisphere. So it's a really unique situation. We're also trying to figure out how to get our students involved with that as well at Point, because the partnership is really good. Oh, and then we have this Forestry Jobs Board. So we have all these different organizations sending us job opportunities. We want to really be the one-stop shop for all things forestry in the state is our goal. And so offering a job board, these different kinds of trainings is part of that mission, part of that goal. Another opportunity for high school students that we do, the science tree felling course is sort of like, it's that chainsaw part of skills camp, but that's all they do. So up at Tree Haven, there is a course for UWSP students that is open to 5 high school students. Those students get scholarships this year from the DNR, VISTA, and GLTK. And I went through this when I first got hired. That's when I learned I was doing things so wrong when I was younger. Turns out gravity will get a tree to hit the ground. Just whether or not you'll still be alive to see it is another question. This was a fantastic course. Fantastic course. So it's a really good experience for high school students. And we have our 5 students signed up for this year. They just got to get registered for the course yet. There's a lot of hoops to jump through, but we're getting there. This course is taught by professionals who volunteer their time to do it. A lot of the professionals are horticulturalists throughout the Midwest who come back and help teach that. And there are some DNR specialists as well. This is a video on our science tree felling. I wonder if it'll work. Oh, do we have internet?
There is internet here. I don't know if you're.
I don't think I log on to that. It's a really good video. It'll blow your mind. You would have been running out and getting a chainsaw. Okay, our applied research. I told you a little bit about the one that research for the needs assessment. 2 other research programs that we did were the development of, you can click ahead, it should show up. 2, all right, so we do some stuff with the DNR. We do some trainings for the DNR and occasionally some research stuff in partnership with the DNR. Off the top of my head, I don't think we have any going on right now, so I don't have much to talk about that. But the next one though, so we developed 2 of these defect guides. I think you might need to hit it twice. We have a maple defect guide, and we are just finishing up the red oak defect guide. These books would be really useful even in a classroom because it shows you what the defect looks like on the outside and what the impact is on the inside. And so it could be used as a tool for people who are merchandising lumber who want to maximize the profit. You look for the defect, you cut that out, you have more clear lumber. But it would also be a really good tool to use in classrooms because students can actually then dissect a tree through the book and see what impact it has. And some of these defects that really create interesting impacts on that fiber. It's really cool. So we have different public outreach programs. Pictured here is Alex Horning, forest health specialist in Portage County. She is really, really good at what she does. I went on one of our joint outreach programs on red pine pocket mortality. So that's when you have like large groups of pine that end up dying out, oftentimes because they get too much water. Red pine was viewed as the money tree at one point, and so they just planted it everywhere. It turns out that it does have preferences, and we put them in places where they don't belong. And so we end up with these big pockets of mortality. And so Alex was really great at going through and showing us how to identify that and what that looks like. So our upcoming workshops here, we have the Turn Up the Heat on ticks, which I'm assuming is going to be fire and tick populations, growing shiitake mushrooms. I wanted to call that making shroom for growth.
It's a pun, we drink.
And then bumblebees, other pollinators, plants, oak wilt biology and management. So we do have some outreach programs coming up. I think the minority of stuff that we tend to do is public outreach focused, but I would like to see some more stuff. Ooh, we offer services. We already talked about the certificate training. Yeah. So that is the Wisconsin Forestry Center in a nutshell.
Oh, drink.
And so if you want to get to the root of any more questions, I won't be leaving anytime soon.
Oh my gosh.
Well, you're driving, so that's why. Any questions?
So I want to mention, Jared brought along information about this high school forestry symposium. It is at SWES, right here in the Amherst area. It is a really great opportunity. There are still registrations open. If you know high school students that would be interested in this, please take one of these. It's on the website, I'm sure, as well. And I am trying to talk a high school student that I know into taking this, and he said, well, I don't think I want to be a forester. And I was like, well, you don't know that yet. And even if you're not a forester, knowing about tree health, knowing how to fall a tree, knowing how to use a chainsaw, those are great life skills. As a landowner, I wish I had more of those skills. And then I'll also plug that Golden Sands RC&D has 2 forestry internships available this summer. So if you know could be a high school senior, could be a college student that wants to immerse themselves in some forestry this summer, we have 2 opportunities, one in Taylor County and one in Clark County, where that student will get paid a handsome wage to go up and work with those county foresters in those county forests. So great hands-on opportunities, great way to keep kids busy in the summer and out of trouble. And those opportunities are on our website. You were going to show us on the website where the contact is.
Do we know what the...
I think it's just a guest. Like a public. Yeah. Yep, there's no password. It's called CW Public.
Oh, here we go. That's the icon I want.
Right.
And that's not what that icon
So, and then click that arrow. Yep. Public. Yep.
That's why I didn't sign it. That's
Did you see the deer he got?
He goes, he lives on Rollins Lake. Well, unfortunately, it was. He says he hadn't seen you in 30 years.
Weird.
I may have too many things. I'm trying to find my stuff. Hi, cats.
Alright. Easy to find. That's your home page there, right?
Yep. So this is the Forestry Center's homepage, and so our drop-down menu is right here. If you want to find the podcast, this is where you would find them. Any of the curriculum stuff is under workforce development. Down there.
Well, that's another cool thing. All the curriculum that you put out there for teachers to download for free.
Yeah, it's all free.
Yeah.
The only thing teachers have to do is fill out a form so we can just track who's using it. And then we can access it for free. We are looking for sponsorships yet for Skills Camp 2, so if you know any organizations who would want to put towards a sponsorship, feel free to send me an email or the WFC email. So WFC@UWSP.com.
Any other questions for Jared? You did such a great job. It's like you. We're going to hang around for a while, so if you guys want to talk, check out our materials. We'll be here. I still need to buy Jared a beer, so.